Okay, we will begin then with Mr. Paul Malcheski will be our first speaker. 3 minutes. Jeffrey.
I just started. Good afternoon, I'm Paul Malcheski. I've been your Concord Township trustee for the last 12 years. I believe during that period of time, we have made Concord Township one of the premier communities in Lake County. In fact, I believe it's the premier community in Lake County. It's a flourishing community. The residents of other townships and other cities have grown to admire, and I'm proud to be a resident here, and I'm proud to raise my family here. I grew up in the same neighborhood I live in today. I've been there for 41 years. The same neighborhood that I delivered newspapers to, same neighborhood that my kids played in the same ball fields that I played in. During my time in office, I believe there are some significant advancements that we have made. With regard to our Concord EMS vehicles, they are now equipped with 12 leads electrocardiographs to monitor active heart attacks, mechanical chest compressions. These devices relay information to the hospitals as the patients are being brought to the hospital. The doctors are talking to our EMS workers and are providing, based upon protocol, certain meds. And this is life-saving advancements in this technology. It was the first to be brought to Lake County. We were the first to do that, as well as increased sheriff patrols. We brought the Lake County Sheriff's Department through the vote of the people. We've increased Lake County Sheriff's patrols not only in our neighborhood communities, but our commercial districts. And what that does is that makes us a safe community. It makes us a vibrant community. It also reduces our homeowner insurance premiums. Additionally, because there's been growth in Concord Township, we had a lot of stormwater issues. And in the last 12 years, we spent $4.5 million through the Stormwater Department in eradicating those issues. Additionally, we've received several millions of dollars from the USDA, Ohio Public Works, FEMA, Department of Homeland Security to purchase homes or structures that are in the floodplains and produce open space in perpetuity for those properties. Your residential values have went up by $57 million. We've also created, and I think probably single-handedly, the best economic viable asset that Concord has ever had, which is the Joint Economic Development District. It produces approximately $650,000 for the community. It ensures Concord's stability. Even though we've dealt with tough economic times in the last 12 years, Concord has been very vibrant. Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Our second speaker will be Denny Cruz.
Ma'am, can you turn that microphone on?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. More than anything else, this election is about trust. It can be summed up by one comment that I've heard over and over again as Kari and myself have walked the neighborhoods of Concord and discussed with the residents details. We never know what is happening until after it happens. Professional politicians like Mr. Galloway and Mr. Malcheski operate best outside the bright lights of community awareness. They count on your ignorance in order to advance their agendas. They point the finger at you and say it is your own fault that you don't know what is going on because you did not go to their meetings. But when you go and challenge their ideas, you are treated with disrespect and disdain, and are told that your question will be answered at their leisure with no chance at a clarifying response. Your time is over, sit down. The things that professional politicians like Mr. Galloway and Mr. Malcheski hate, like citizen advisory committees and citizen surveys, are the very things that Kari and I will embrace. Citizen input scares them. They would much rather send $600,000 of your money to consultants like Reisinger and Associates from Chicago, or seek advice from urban think tanks in New York City like Demand Institute, than reach out to their own community. They look for ways to turn the semi-rural community that you and I love into a retail destination mecca for Lake County and beyond that will come with massive increases in traffic and headaches of all kinds, while ignoring local businesses like Riders, which is now an empty storefront. If you've had enough of this, remember that we still live in a democracy, and on November 7th, you can exercise your right to change things. Don't be bullied or browbeat with ridiculous and foolish mailings that mislead you and insult your intelligence. Don't be sidetracked when they accuse us of scare tactics and negativity. The reality is you should be scared, very scared. And negativity is part of a democracy. You have the power. Elect Denny Cruz and Kari Matsko. We will not be your decision-making monarchs who will tell you over and over how much we know and continuously pat ourselves on the back. We will be your facilitators, and you will be our boss. Our stewardship will reflect your desires, not ours. We will take the time needed to reach out in a multitude of ways, including the grapevine, citizen surveys, citizen advisory committees, the internet, and good old-fashioned face-to-face. You will not be intimidated at our meetings. You will be valued and embraced. The choice is yours. Vote for Denny Cruz and Kari Matsko on November 7th. Thank you.
Our third speaker will be Kari Matsko, sorry.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here today, and I appreciate everyone coming out. And thanks again to the League of Women Voters and 55 and Over group for hosting us today. After 12 years of the current regime, Concord needs a voice from everyday citizens like you and me. As a Northeast Ohio native, successful executive and community leader, I will bring a fresh perspective to Concord. Career-wise, I've worked for 17 years with automatic data processing, ADP, in capacities ranging from project manager to quality assurance engineer on large-scale national and international implementations of human capital management software. I know what you're thinking because I hear this all the time every time people ask me about my job. So put in plain English, for the majority of my career, I've been in the difficult role of middleman. It is my job to work with not only the executives from Fortune 500 companies who hired us to implement change, but also to ascertain the goals and priorities of every single representative from thousands of locations and departments across the nation to ensure the needs were met for thousands of employees. There are many parallels in my experience that would benefit in my role as trustee. It's my goal to fulfill the role for which an elected official was intended, to be a public servant. Without ever being in such a role, in an elected capacity, I volunteered here at a local level for several years, advocating for private property rights and improvements to community health and safety after our state lawmakers passed legislation that revoked many of these rights in 2004. Upon seeing my commitment, our state senator at that time, Senator Grandel, encouraged me to form and lead a grassroots effort on behalf of the community. I did so and made an impact at a state level by improving our law. I have a proven record of ascertaining the needs of the community. This entire project was based on a citizen listening project wherein we went all around the state to find out everyone's ideas, input, and feedback in terms of changes to the law, and then implemented those. I know we'll talk a little bit more about our platform in one of the upcoming questions, but it's threefold. Number one, to save you money in preventing tax increases. Number two, to retain our semi-rural quality of life in the community by encouraging responsible zoning. And number three, what Denny elaborated on a little more here with the citizen input. Thank you, and I appreciate your support this November.
And our fourth speaker for trustee is Mr. Christopher Galloway.
I appreciate the opportunity to be here today with our seniors group. This is a great event that gets put on every October here in Town Hall or here at Community Center. I apologize for my tardiness, but I was meeting with some representatives from a local grocer regarding Concord Township and the recent unfortunate closing of Riders. That's a large part of the types of things that we do as trustees, is to get out and advocate for this community, advocate for you. And we're working hard as we speak to look for a replacement for that facility. So again, I apologize for my tardiness. But you know, 12 years ago, Connie Luda asked me to run for trustee. And I had been on the County Planning Commission, and I had been part of the Concord Township Comprehensive Plan Committee. And I told her on several occasions that no way, I didn't want to run for trustee. I was turned off by the comprehensive plan process that I had sat on as a citizen, and how chaotic it was, and bickering. And she said, that's the problem that we have right now in Concord. There's too much chaos, too much controversy, too much folks looking out for their own particular interests and not the community. And she asked me repeatedly to run, and of course Connie is excellent at getting her own way. And so eventually she convinced me to run, and it's been a pleasure to serve with her and Paul these last 12 years. The thing that we have focused on has been safety, prosperity, and stability. Paul touched on a lot of that, the safety, making sure that we have the best technology for our fire department, making sure that we have excellent policing through our expanded sheriff's contract, making sure that the community is stable, but a balanced budget surpluses. During the Great Recession, when other communities were having lots of problems, laying people off, cutting services, you didn't see that from Concord because of excellent planning and preparation with things like the Joint Economic Development District. And lastly, prosperity. Our homes are our biggest investment for most people. And in the last 3 years alone, Concord Township home values have gone up $57 million. That's us working hard to protect your biggest investment. Now, a lot of this stuff about negativity and mentions of the professional politicians, I can't really speak to that kind of stuff. That's where this campaign has gone. I can tell you that we have been criticized on a number of things since June 3rd, with a midnight email that's went around the township accusing all sorts of things in terms of high-rise apartments and other things, none of which were true and are still not true. And I think we'll get into that a little bit more, but what I would tell you is that I'm proud of the stewardship that we've done in this township. It's been 12 years of stability and calm and well-run management, and that's what we will offer going forward. Thank you.
Each of the candidates will now have 3 minutes of rebuttal in the same order. So, Mr. Malcheski.
Thank you. As Chris has mentioned with regards to the planning, we focused a lot on planning. I will remind everybody that we have 2 meetings a month on every first Wednesday and third Wednesday. Those are all televised, and they're rerun. They're on the internet. They're on our website. We've upgraded the Grapevine in providing as much information as possible. We provide everybody with our cell phones, which mine is 440-487-3812. I get phone calls all the time on that. And I will sit and I will explain anything to anyone at any time. And I will say that in the sense that when Painesville Township was looking to put a joint economic development district together, they asked me to speak with Mr. Cruz, who has a business in that area. And I spoke with him, and I will tell you that, at least my recollection on November 9th when we were at the Port Authority, is that I walked them through every single thing that we have talked about and have done in Concord Township, and our plans, and how we see the township developing. Township's going to develop. It is our job to shape that development, to control that development, make sure that it looks and feels the way we want Concord Township to look and feel. And of course, that requires input from the residents. Our meetings are there to have that input. I will tell you that I think the work that we've done and the planning that we have done with regards to shaping what our commercial development is going to be will stabilize Concord Township for the near future. We recently had Concord Village to come to Concord Township, which is $11.5 million project. Vista Springs, which was another $12 million project. Starbucks, $625,000. Crowd Crossings, $2.2 million. Drug Mart's going to be $4 million. We haven't had a drugstore since Medic left, over by my end of town. And Bremix, which is $500,000. So there's a $28,625 $1,000 investment in Concord Township in the last year. That's going to give a total revenue of $458,000 in taxes to the county, approximately $80,000 in taxes to Concord Township. It is going to create jobs in Concord Township, and that's what we've been doing here. Thank you.
Our second speaker is Denny Cruz.
In June of this year, I had no idea I'd be running for Concord Township trustee. The thought never even crossed my mind. And then, like most people that were waylaid, I will say, by this large urban project that our current trustees had proposed, we're shocked. We were here at a question and answer period. I don't know how many people were here for that, but people were shocked and outraged at what they saw on the posters that Mr. Mal Galloway and Mr. Malcheski pointed out. They had no idea. And the part that amazed me was that the pamphlet that they came out to cause that Q&A to happen, we had been working on this for 10 years. And nobody knew about it. Nobody knew about it. That amazed me. There were 4-story buildings there on the picture, up to 7,000 multifamily homes. They've since tabled that, and they're saying that, okay, well, it's not there, but it could come back at any time. I am convinced that it will come back. I am very concerned about Concord. Many people love Concord just the way it is. There's no reason to do any of that. And that was part of the reason that I ran. The other part is I've noticed that there is a complete disconnect as we walk around between the people in the community and the township activities. People don't know what's happening. Now, maybe they're having meetings. Sure, they have open meetings, but I think that's the minimum. I think what has to happen in this township is that we have to reach out to the community. And it's not up to the township trustees to decide. It's up to the community to decide. And that could really be a lot of fun. I used to work with self-directed work teams in many different companies. And when you pull people together that have never made a decision before, and you say, look, this is up to you. How are we going to work on this machine? How are we going to develop this tactic? People step up to the plate. They want to be involved. Citizens want to be involved. There's no citizen advisory committee. There's nothing. There's Paul and there's Connie and there's Chris making these decisions. Maybe they mean well, okay? But they're making the decisions. We have no part of it. We must have a part of that. It has to change. We have to have a township government that reaches out in a multitude of ways, and there's many ways you can do this. Bring in the community. Let's make this community what we want, not what I want, not what Kari wants, not what Paul or Chris want, what we want. And that can be done. And it can be a lot of fun. Thank you.
Now we will hear again from Kari Matsko.
Thank you again. In terms of rebuttal, I guess I have 2 points to make. First and foremost, as Denny and I have been walking the neighborhoods, and apologize if we haven't gotten to yours yet, it's a lot of area to cover. One of the complaints that comes up a lot is actually as it pertains to stormwater. So thinking about this, and appreciate the work that Paul and Chris have done in terms of addressing that with FEMA grants and whatnot. But we're not just citizens of Concord, we're citizens of the United States of America. And I feel like FEMA has more important places to put their money after hurricanes and all this, as opposed to addressing our overdevelopment that is creating stormwater issues. So as it pertains to my next point being twofold, pertaining to overdevelopment, stormwater, and also just generally responsible zoning. Thinking about the area along Capitol and Auburn Road there, where this has come up in a couple points here, the shaping of the development, or the comprehensive plan. This lends itself to a couple of other things I have a little bit of opposition with it, which is big government and private property rights infringement. When they say they want to take this property and kind of guide it in a certain way, whatever happened to businesses being allowed to purchase property and do what they want with their property? Denny and I want to promote long-term reliable income for residents along this area, Auburn Capitol Parkway, using this area as it was already recommended in the last citizen survey, that would benefit our pocketbooks by not expanding residential options that ultimately would result in more school tax levies due to the burdens placed on the education system as a result of increase in students if that goes mixed use with residential. And I want to end with just a quote also from, it was included in the 2003 comprehensive plan, and that is, according to the Northeast Ohio Regional Retail Analysis, communities planning to use retail development as the focus of an economic strategy would be better served by trying to sustain and or attract business, industrial and office-based businesses. So that would conclude my rebuttal in terms of just thinking about how we want Concord to move forward and what sort of government, big or small, do we want, and what sort of property rights do we want. Thank you very much.
Let me address I've got 3 minutes. It was this Board of Trustees that made the decision to put our meetings on the internet so that snowbirds could watch these meetings no matter where they are, if they're in Florida or Arizona. We were the first community in Lake County to embrace that, so to take that and put that on the internet for streaming. We've expanded the broadcast of our meetings so that they are cycling more. It was this board that increased the frequency of the grapevine, improved the publication, expanded upon it. We've done a lot of things in order to try to make sure that our residents are fully informed and have avenues beyond our open meetings that anyone is, of course, eligible to come to. When we talk about outreach on press, I went back and just started trying to dig up some articles on some of the stuff that we've been working on, and they go back over the last 10 years, and this is literally just a small fraction of the volume of stuff that's been in the News Herald, Cleveland, in the Grapevine. So I disagree vehemently that somehow the trustees have been working in secret without resident input. We've had a lot of resident input. We get phone calls every day, emails every day from residents that want to know what's going on. They have questions. We are readily available. It's these trustees that you'll find at 2:30 in the morning in somebody's flooded basement when we get that phone call. There's a lot that goes into this job than what folks see twice a month on a Wednesday for an hour at Town Hall. Going back and looking at my schedule, I have personally put in well over 12,000 man hours into this job, working hard for the residents of this community. I want to also just take a couple other things that were sort of mentioned here. When you talk about development, this corridor that we're in right now has been zoned commercial since the 1960s. And I think Ms. Matsko's comments are interesting in that when we talk about wanting to control and manage and develop, it's not taking away private property rights. It's taking the township and putting it in as much of a position of control on how this area will develop. The things that we have put in place in terms of more stringent zoning, proper planning, these are the tools that will allow the township to make sure that this area, as it develops out, and I think you've heard that everyone agrees it will, is what does it look like? Does it fit the fabric of Concord, or is it going to develop out in a willy-nilly hodgepodge manner and look like Vine Street? When Ms. Matsko talks about property owners having rights and letting them do whatever they want with the property, make no mistake, that will be the end result of what happens in this area. A Taco Bell on the corner of Capitol Parkway and Auburn Road, various disjointed uses. And in the end, that will be a failure for Concord. It will be a failure for us to be able to control our destiny, for us to make sure that we have a place that is sustainable and that we can all be proud of for decades in the future, our children, millennials. That's what we're working on, and I appreciate your time.
Okay, our first question, and Mr. Galloway missed my warning that he will go first on this. So we're going to go in reverse order. But the first question is, what personal qualities do you possess that would make you a good trustee? And they have 1 minute to answer that. Mr. Galloway.
Thank you. There's been a lot of talk about professional politicians and all this sort of rhetoric. The first and foremost is that I'm your neighbor. I see on social media, people go on there and they say all kinds of awful things as they're wont to do. But at the end of the day, I'm your neighbor, Paul is your neighbor, and we do this job and put so much time and effort into it because we care about this community and its direction. And I think our track record shows that over 12 years, this community has been stable, well-run, well-managed, and I think those are the qualities, that attention to detail, being willing to go out and go spend the 7 years it took to bring Drug Mart to Concord. That was our effort. We went out and said, we need a drugstore, and we worked 7 years to get them here. 1 minute.
Thank you. In terms of the qualities that would make me a good trustee, I'd have to say loyalty. I've been with my company for 17 years. I've considered leaving from time to time, but I feel so guilty even interviewing with somebody else. I'm a very loyal person. Commitment is the second, and advocacy. As I stated earlier, I worked for a number of years, used all my vacation days, as a matter of fact, from work to drive to Columbus and back, 3 hours each way, to advocate for you, for our property rights, for our health and safety rights. That was my vacation time. And in closing, I came across a quote a while ago, and it stuck with me over the years because it embodies who I am. And so whether I'm elected to serve you as your next trustee or not, I will continue as I have been for years along this same path. And the quote is by Lily Tomlin, and it goes, I always wondered, why doesn't somebody do something about that? And then I realized I am somebody.
And Mr. Cruz will be next.
Well, with the nuts and bolts, I've been in business a long time. I understand money going out, money coming in, money going out. I understand the basics of business. I think that I would have no problem with the financial operation of the township. I think my greatest asset is I do believe I have an ability as a facilitator. A lot of people look at working with a group of people as messy. You can't get anything done. It gets in the way of your ideas, pushing through an agenda. And it can absolutely be negative or appear to be negative. But that's democracy, folks. Democracy is working with people, working with ideas, getting it out, and I think I'm very good at facilitating groups of people so that they can put together the idea, we can work together, and we can come up with a consensus. I've done it my whole life. It works. It's messy. It's some people are scared to death of it, but it's fun. And the more you do it, the better people get at it, and the better ideas you get. Because in this room, I guarantee you, there's some really good ideas.
I've never thought of myself as a politician. What I hope to promote is good governance. And if you look at where I came from and where Chris lives and where Connie lives, you couldn't, in just our personalities and our backgrounds, you couldn't get three more different people. But when I take the evidence in and Chris takes the evidence in, and Connie takes the evidence in on decisions that we make. There are very, very few decisions that we don't have 100% agreement on. And I believe we get that 100% agreement on these decisions because we gather the proper evidence, we care about the community, and we don't want to screw anything up. And we make sure that we do whatever we need to do to make sure that we have all the tools at our disposal so that we continue to make Concord Township the premier community in Lake County. Thank you.
The second question for these 4 candidates. If elected, what would be your top 2 priorities? So, Mr. Galloway, you were
I have a lot of priorities beyond just 2. But the first is to make sure that this community continues to be run well, well-managed. That's our top priority every day. It comes down to budgeting. There's a lot of talk about a couple of things going on in the township, and no community is perfect. But at the end of the day, what the job of a trustee does is so much more. It's budgeting, it's working with our fire chief, it's working with our road department, making sure that we can continue to fix our roads at record. We've been fixing them at record rates in recent years. Making sure that we expand our JED so that we have those revenue streams that make us stable. It was this board that established those revenue streams. Continuing to shepherd the township forward, and we are always listening. My cell phone number is 440-749-1439. I always encourage anyone to give me a call. Our email is trustees@concordtwp.com. We'll reach all 3 of us. And I appreciate you taking time today to listen to all this.
Similarly, there's many more than just 2, but to try to narrow it down here. Number 1, to save you money. For example, as of 2016, the Ohio Revised Code allows for monies collected through JED agreements to be applied as needed. So rather than asking us, the citizens of Concord, to vote or pass a road repair levy, I would apply the monies already collected to do so. Number 2, I bought my dream home here in Concord. I wanted to stay semi-rural. I've heard this from people out on, going door to door. But the last item would be, or the second item would be citizen input. And how about posting an agenda for zoning and trustee meetings? At my work, if I had just said to all of the people that I'm working with, hey, come and join a 3-hour meeting, nobody would show up, I'll have to say. Every time I look out on the website on agendas for trustee and zoning meetings, it just says a time and place. So I think something as simple as saying what's on deck for that evening could get a lot more participation into those meetings.
Mr. Cruz.
The first thing I would do would be immediately put together a citizen group that would put together a survey, a very in-depth survey, use that group to put the survey together, to get it out, to find out what really the community wants, so that we can begin the process of bringing the community together and know what they want. The second thing that I would do is I would really address that Route 44 Auburn intersection. I would call ODOT. I would do whatever I took to find a way to change that. I have never seen an intersection like that anywhere in the world, and I've traveled a lot, folks.
I'm going to pick the 2 things that I do in the fall. And in the fall, we try to squeeze out one last road project, one last stormwater project. And we do that as you plan every year. You have some contingencies, and you hope you save a few dollars here and a few dollars there, and you squeeze out those last projects before the end of the season. And as we talk about the aging infrastructure, we talk about the homes that are built in Concord Township, the road constructions. We need to continue to repave and rebuild roads. at the record rate that we've been doing that. And additionally, the continued stormwater projects. I sit down with stormwater every year. We make sure that we get all our stormwater money out, that we put into stormwater, as well as many additional funds as we can by a collaboration with the county. And we do that not only for stormwater, but we do that for road construction along with ODOT. We bring ODOT in as well as the county and trying to get our road projects done. And that's what I continue to do. Roads and stormwater. Thank you.
I'm very impressed with all four of you. You are obviously caring about your community, you're committed, and you all followed my rules, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth.
At this time, we will begin with issue 3, which is our Children's Services Levy. And Lori O'Brien will be our speaker, and she has 3 minutes to tell you about why you need to vote for this issue. Thank you, Lori. Thank you.
A lot of people left, so I hope you share what I tell you with your neighbors. So,
and it will be televised.
Okay. Yes, I'm Lori O'Brien. I'm the Administrator of Children's Services. I'm here today to ask for your support on issue number 3. Issue number 3 is the Children's Services Levy that generates funds to support child abuse and neglect investigations, as well as we are financially responsible for the basic needs for any child that comes into the custody because they were unsafe. So we have to financially provide for their basic needs, food, clothing, and shelter. So the levy funds support that. The levy that will be on the ballot is a renewal with an additional ask of 0.4 of a mil. The reason for the additional ask is that our agency has taken custody of 38% more children since 2010 to 2016. For 2017, we're looking at a 54% increase in the number of kids that we have to remove because they're not safe in their homes. The opiate epidemic, which many of you probably are aware of, has significantly impacted the children coming into our custody. Just last month, we took custody of 3 infants directly from the hospital born addicted to heroin. We have to provide for their safety, and it's not something that we can predict how many children are going to come into custody, so it's not even something we can budget for. So with the 54% increase, along with a $450,000 decrease in the renewal generations, we're asking for support of issue number 3. What the levy means for a homeowner, if your home is valued at $100,000, it's an increase of $14 a year. So I hope you think that $14 a year is reasonable for us to be able to protect these children who don't have any other choice. So thank you, and support issue 3 by voting yes.
And we will now hear from your own Fire Chief, Matt Sabo.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for coming. Thanks for staying. I wasn't sure who I was going to be speaking, so that's nice. On November 7th, the fire department is going to present to you with a 2.7 mil 5-year renewal levy for fire department operations through 2022, when this levy expires on December 31st of this year. This is, again, a 2.7 mil renewal. This is not an increase. I'm not asking for any more money to do the phenomenal services and provide the phenomenal services that our fire department is able to provide for you today. This is estimated to bring in about $1.6 million annually and cost about $79 per $100 of valuation. That's no more than what you're paying now. So we appreciate your continued support for this renewal levy. Just to give you a little bit of background, and I thought this was interesting. I've been a Concord firefighter for about 17 years. I've been with this department. I just recently became chief in January of 2016, and it's been a pleasure.
Excuse me, but I think you misstated something.
No, it's his turn to talk. You can ask him a question later.
So we serve all of Concord Township out of 2 stations. We have 15 full-time firefighters, 28 part-time firefighters, 2 part-time civilian fire inspectors, and a fire educator. We have 1 administrative assistant, 1 deputy chief, and 1 fire chief. We provide fire suppression, EMS, technical rescue, hazmat, fire code enforcement, safety and fire prevention education, residential lock boxes, and residential smoke alarms. We additionally go out and we provide CPR and first aid instruction, child safety seat inspections, home inspections, school presentations, and our annual safety day. Since 2012, the fire department has been awarded over $500,000 in grant money that we worked hard to go get to keep our costs down. This all went to needed equipment and training, and our out-of-pocket for that equipment was just $42,000 for that $500,000. So our population since 1991, when this levy came into effect, has increased 31%. Our daily staffing has increased 50%, and our annual calls for service has increased 67% since this levy came into effect. So we appreciate your support, and we want to continue providing this outstanding service to you. Thank you.
I'm going to allow one question, but in the interest of time, we really aren't planning on questions today because in order to keep it at a reasonable length for the televising. Okay, what is your question?
I'm not trying to disagree or anything, but I think I misheard something. When you talked about the valuation, the number of dollars per amount of valuation, that didn't sound like it could possibly be true.
Thank you. And I wasn't sure either, so I reached out to the Lake County Auditor to get an idea about how much this was going to continue to cost from what you're paying now. And the Lake County Auditor quoted me $79.33 per $100,000 of valuation.
Per 100,000. What I heard was $79 per $100 of valuation.
No, sir. Per 100,000.
Okay, I didn't hear the thousand.
It's okay.
Thank you for that explanation.
You're welcome,
I'm
sir.
glad for that point of clarification. So I thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
Lori, I'll see you again tonight, and I'll see you next Tuesday. So
Thank you.
We're keeping her very busy. Thank you both. So now we're going to have the mentor school candidates come forward. I appreciate those of you who stayed, and also the home audience. And I have been very negligent. Deborah Esker has arranged this wonderful day. She's the one who sent out all the invitations, kept track of them for me while I partied on a family vacation. So I really appreciate all her hard work, and she has wonderful refreshments for us afterwards as well. So we're going to do the same thing with the school board candidates as with the trustee candidates. They will each have 3 minutes to speak, and then 3 minutes of rebuttal, and then they will have the same 2 questions and 1 minute to answer each of them. So first we will hear from E. Kenneth Buckley. Mr. Buckley.
Good afternoon. I'm here to tell you that we are very well behaved and have been treating each other with extreme respect throughout the campaign. And I'm an ex-school teacher, and so I appreciate rule followers. Good afternoon. I am Ken Buckley, and I am a candidate for the Mentor School Board. And I would like to thank the League of Women Voters for this opportunity to share why I'm running for the school board. Basically, there are 4 reasons. I would like to share my time and talents with our schools. I bring a wealth of educational experience to the table, and I have the advantage of looking at issues through several lenses, for I have been a teacher, a building administrator, a central office administrator, and of course a parent and a grandparent. I've lived in Mentor for 66 years, and I realize that a strong school system is needed to preserve our real estate values and attract new businesses and families to our community. As a graduate of Mentor Schools, I have a personal interest in preserving and improving the quality of our school system My wife and our 4 children are Mentor graduates, and 2 of my grandchildren are now freshmen at Mentor High. Finally, I do believe in public education for all students, and I would work to keep the focus on student achievement in the academics, fine arts, and of course, extracurricular activities. Basically, I want to utilize my 44 years of experience in education as a way to serve our school system and our community. Thank you.
How many people are running for it?
I'm sorry, that's a good question. There are 7 candidates for 3 positions. Very good question, thank you. Our second speaker is Deanne Roberts.
Hi everyone, my name is Deanne Roberts. Every one of our children has his own talents and strengths and weaknesses. I have 2 kids in Mentor High. Emily's 15 and John is 17. Emily's as outgoing as you can get. She's a school ambassador. She is a Principal's Advisory Committee member, League of Innovative Schools guide, you name it, she does everything. She loves school, she chatters about it constantly every day. John, just the opposite. You can't get him to say much. He doesn't talk, doesn't really show emotion. Even when he was born, he just kind of looked up at me and didn't even cry. So what's changed? This year, I can't get John to stop talking about school. He's found his path, that's why. He's in our construction management program. He comes home every day chattering about this joint and this electricity thing he's learned. That's so exciting to me. He's found his path. He's gonna have a future, and he's finally found it. I want that experience to happen to all of our kids and all of our grandkids. As parents and grandparents and a community and educators, that's our job, to help our kids find a pathway into their life. And we know that not every kid is made for college. We need to prepare our kids to enter the workforce with entry-level skills if they're not going to college. There are now hiring signs all over in our community. We need mechanics and welders and electricians and healthcare workers, you name it. We want to give them experiences, we need to give them experiences before they're done with high school to know, hey boy, I really want to do this when I graduate. We also need to do the same thing for our college-bound kids before we spend tens of thousands of dollars sending them to college. Give them an externship or an apprenticeship so they know, yes, I really want to do data analyst when I go to college. So as parents and teachers and community, we all need the same things for our schools. We need excellence in education. We need support of our teachers. We need great futures for our kids. We want open communication internally within our schools and externally with our community. We want to do this by being fiscally responsible because money counts. So why me? I've been a volunteer for many years at our schools. I'm a band mom with both kids in marching band, Science Olympiad coach, classroom helper, you name it, I've done it since I've been here. And I've got many years of management and leadership experience to provide some balance to our school board. I work for Progressive Insurance. I want to help providing some insight into what business world is looking for these days. The role of a board member is to develop policy and procedure, and I know what following policy and procedure is because I do it every day as a compliance manager. As running an organization, I have a budget. I have to stay within my budget, and I have to do some really difficult things and make some difficult decisions at times. I believe I can help, and I really thank you for your support and for being here. Thank you.
And our third speaker is Sally S. Miller.
Good afternoon, and thank you for coming. My name is Sally Miller. I thought I would just introduce myself to you a little bit because school board people are not necessarily as glamorous as politicians and those kinds of things. I have degrees in business education and administration. I attended Grove City College. And in 1979, I came to work at Mentor High School. I continued to be a teacher. I've taught at Ridge, Shore, and the high school. And then in 1998, I became the assistant principal at Ridge Junior High, and I was transferred back to the high school as a unit principal in 2002, where I retired in 2011 from Mentor High School. I believe that this certainly proves that I have a vested interest not only in Mentor schools, but more especially the Mentor students. We have always at Mentor tried to offer the best education possible for every child in our school system. I continue to work. I work at Madison High School. I'm the family liaison there, so I have firsthand knowledge of the report card, SLOs, and of course exams, the teacher requirements, and all kinds of things. That's all still part of my life. And I am a Concord resident. I think I'm the only one on the board that is a Concord resident. You know, when you're an administrator in a school system, you kind of are the boss. I mean, you can do what you are. I had a class, and I was the boss. The Board of Education is different, and I had a lot to learn when I was elected to the board. Being a member of the board is hard work, and I've learned a lot from my term. I learned to listen. I learned that it's not about individual wants. Nobody's the boss of anything on a school board. You all come to the table bringing your own expertise, knowledge, and experience to a decision-making process. There's often spirited debate, disagreement, and then coming to consensus together. And what we've done on the board and what I want to continue to do on the board is to continue to make the schools better for each and every student at Mentor. Our job, we basically have two jobs. Our first job is to employ the superintendent and chief financial officer, and then it's their job to take care of the details. Our second job is to make sure that the board policies are followed. Each person on the board sees the situation or problem or concern through a different lens and brings their expertise. I've worked almost my entire life for the Mentor schools and for the students in the schools, and I would hope that you would allow me to continue that work on the board. Thank you.
And this is a little more confusing with 7, I apologize. Our next speaker is Mr. Dave Plumley.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to Leland voters and Concord community for allowing me to come and speak to you today. I'm a parent working for continued district success. So like some of your family, maybe you have had students who are in Garfield Elementary as Concord is in the backyard of Garfield. And for me, that's been my experience. 6 years ago, I started out in kindergarten in my son's class, volunteering in his classroom, wiping noses and painting fingers. Little did I know that that would lead to an opportunity to be involved in PTA. 2 years ago, I accepted a position as PTA president at Garfield Elementary School. And it was a great opportunity because not only did I get to rub shoulders with the Mentor community, but also got to rub shoulders with the Concord community as well. And to pay you a high compliment, the core of our PTA was run by Concord parents, and they're very hard workers, and I appreciate that. So during those 2 years that I also developed relationships, collaborative relationships with other teachers, faculty, and administrators. As my term was up this past May, Mr. Miller, former superintendent, approached me and said, "How would you like to consider running for school board?" And I said, "Well, that's not in my future plans." However, listening to him and what he had to say and his encouragement allowed me to be here today, and I'm excited about the opportunity. This isn't a stepping stone for me. I don't see myself as a politician. I don't see myself going on to city council and the likes of the individuals we heard from earlier who are great people. I don't see myself in that role. I see myself working for the students in our community. I continually challenge myself to learn something new. I don't like to sit down. I don't like to settle for where I'm at. And that's the same thing that I'll do for my school board. Nobody coming on school board for the first time is an instant expert. But I've already invested myself into the Mentor Community School Board. I purchased resources over the summer, attended seminars, and asked lots and lots of questions. My goal is to be accessible to the community so that you too can also ask the questions that I probably have asked myself. I'm excited about this opportunity, and I thank you for your consideration. Thank you.
And our next speaker is Gwen Corbett.
Good afternoon. First of all, thanks to you for staying and listening to us. We greatly appreciate that. And I also like to thank League of Women Voters to keeping us honest and the community for hosting us. I've been a Mentor resident for over 40 years. My children are graduates of Mentor schools, and my grandchildren are currently enrolled at Fairfax Elementary. I am on the ballot again. I had been on the school board from 2007 to 2011, had left when I retired from my job at Neighboring, and I thought I'd retire from other commitments. Well, that didn't last long for me. I'm back on the ballot again because one of my concerns is obviously the opiate epidemic. I am a licensed social worker, and I have real concerns about the issues that do face our community. I have been working and volunteering in various agencies. I currently am director of New Directions for Living, which is located in Concord right across from St. Gabe's. That's where my office is. We have an agreement with St. Gabe's. With my experience and knowledge of the resources available, it's my hope that I can help the school community collaborate more effectively with some of the social service communities to address issues in our school to help our students become more successful. A major issue that the board is facing is the efficient use of our resources, our facilities and resources. With enrollment and state funding declining, what is the best course of action? Redistricting, closing another building. The district itself has started a resource committee to review all these options, and it will be our responsibility as board members to review the options and to vote on a course of action. Another issue facing the district is hiring a permanent superintendent. The superintendent is the face of our district to our community and the leader of our administration team. It is important that he works to develop a shared vision for the district and creates and executes a coherent plan to achieve mutually agreed upon goals, as well as communicating and collaborating with all of the stakeholders. In closing, I hope that you will support me, Gwen Corbin, on November 7th because of my past experiences on the Board of Education, my commitment to our community, and by my many volunteer activities, dedication of time and efforts to continue to safely educate all students to be successful today and in the future. Thank you for your time and consideration.
And our next speaker is Kelly Bailey. Thank you for speaking.
Good afternoon, my name is Kelly Valen, and I'm running for Mentor School Board. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for putting this event together. A little bit about me. I've lived in Mentor for over 30 years. I attended Mentor schools, graduating in 1998, and I'm proud to say that I am a product of the district. For me, life has come full circle. My oldest attends the high school. My 11-year-old will be finishing Fairfax next year and moving on to the middle school. And then I have two girls, one who will start kindergarten and one who will be behind her shortly after that. Over the last 13 years, I've been a part of the PTA, most recently serving my third year as the Fairfax PTA president. I was the president of the Lake County Council, and I'm a member of the high school PTA. At the district level, I have participated in the party guideline committee, as well as strategic planning, part of the resources task force. All of these accolades have provided me the opportunity to form bonds with our students, teachers, and the administrators. They have been the driving force behind encouraging me to take this step and seek this position. Our board, as it is now, stands of retired teachers, community and business leaders, and these are super important aspects to have. However, we do not have somebody currently with children in the schools. We need to be certain that the voice of the parent is heard. Recently, I had someone ask me, well, why do we need a current parent on the board? Well, here's an example. You know, my children have broad age gaps. My 17-year-old, when he was in kindergarten, will look very different from what my 5-year-old will start next fall. It would be such an asset to have a person on the board who has a strong pulse on what is current in the community and is right in the middle of the mix of things. I have multiple children in multiple schools, and this gives me a very unique perspective of our children's education. What you can expect from me, first, your children are my children. They'll be at the forefront of every decision that I make, and my number one priority, ensuring they receive the highest quality education. Second, it's critical to be fiscally responsible. Mentor and Concord is such a great area. People are not moving away. We need to explore ways to connect with our aging community and make them have a sense of ownership. This way, when levies arise, you'll know why it's worth it to spend your money. Finally, I believe to be successful, we need clear communication and to be as transparent as possible. I'm committed and focused on keeping Mentor schools strong. If our schools are strong, our community will be strong. Thank you, folks.
And last but not least, we have Virginia Jesslyn.
How do you pronounce the last name?
The name is pronounced Jesslyn, even though it looks like Yeshelnik, which is how it originated when Yosef Yeshelnik came through LSI. So good afternoon, and I am Virginia Jesslyn, and thank you to the League of Women Voters and the Concord Township community for inviting us this afternoon. So why am I running for a second term on the Mentor Board of Education? Well, I've lived in Mentor for 34 years, and it's been my privilege to serve on the board since being elected in 2013. My experience has enriched my insight into the governance of a public school district in Ohio, and I believe that my 21 years of teaching in classrooms K through 12 and my service as a board member has expanded my ability to serve thoughtfully and to understand the needs and issues facing us. Since January 2014, I've attended, led, or experienced more than 400 meetings, conferences, workshops, school events, and activities. Shadowing students and visiting classrooms, career tech programs, special education units, and exhibitions have given me good insight into the daily work of the district across the spectrum. From speech and debate, Science Olympiad, and Cardinal Challenge, to art shows, concerts, plays, and more, it's possible to get a deeper sense of what our students are doing and what their needs may be. These special experiences have informed my understanding of the Mentor Public Schools and helped me to ask more thoughtful questions and make decision-making more concrete. I hope I've proven myself to be a well-prepared and dedicated board member, devoted advocate for public education. I pride myself on being accessible and responsive to the community we serve, knowing that most households in our district do not have school-aged children. I believe it's critically important to communicate well with all stakeholders so that they are assured that their tax dollars are being invested wisely. I'm a community stakeholder too. My own children are Mentor graduates, and my 3 grandchildren are young Cardinals. I support balanced learning in our classrooms, which integrates technology thoughtfully and appropriately. I also support the goal of every graduate being college or career ready when they leave us. I hope to have the chance to continue to serve. Stabilizing school funding is a primary objective because school leaders across Ohio are wrestling with an alarming shift in state funding patterns, which have depleted public school operating budgets. Continuing the district's excellent management of resources via zero-based budgeting is a priority. We continue to work through our state representatives and the Ohio School Boards Association to urge the restoration of state funding, and I've been active in reaching out to elected officials and organized a countywide meeting with Ohio legislators and members of the Lake County School Boards, all 9 of them, in 2015. It was also helpful to participate in visits with our State Board of Education members and the Ohio State Superintendent, and I hope to earn your vote on November 7th. Thank you.
Okay, each of these candidates will have 3 minutes for rebuttal, and we will begin with Mr. Buckley. Nothing to rebut?
We really don't.
Okay.
We don't have anything.
Okay. You all, okay.
Well, can I ask a question then, if there's time?
No, I have a question. We are trying to keep this to 90 minutes, so maybe we can do it here. What personal qualities do you possess that would make you a good school board member? And I'm going to begin with Mrs. Jesslyn. We're going back.
Thank you. So, 4 things I think are part of what has helped me feel successful in this board position for the last 4 years. Collaborative, fair, prepared, and engaged. Those 4 things are part of the way I've always tried to conduct myself. I think much more can be accomplished through listening and collaboration because, as Mrs. Miller very wisely pointed out, we are a team. We are 5 disparate voices sometimes, but we thoughtfully listen to one another and try to come to the best consensus given all the information before us so that we can make a decision that we can all support going forward in the governance of our schools. And I know that everybody, regardless of their orientation, brings that same spirit of caring about our students. It makes me proud of my community that so many people are stepping forward to want to serve. So thank you so much.
Okay, in no particular order here. First, I think I'm persistent. You know, that's part of it. It's just not quitting on our kids, not quitting on what's right for them. And the big thing with me is I know I don't have maybe some of the other experiences as the others, but if I don't know the answer, I'll find a way to get the answer. And second, I believe for me it's about being honest and genuine. You know, we had a lot of changes in the last couple of years, just with something as simple as the snack policy. And as a PTA president, you know, my family's, there was almost no kickback at our school as opposed to some of the other schools. And, you know, just preparing them and always knowing and being honest with them, you know, it means a lot to people, the transparency. Thank you.
My qualities I have, I'm committed to financial stability as I worked when we went through physical emergency to make sure that the schools stay financially stable. I'm dedicated to educating children safely to be the best that they can be. I'm experienced in budgeting, in state funding, and definitely social services for over 40 years. And also I'm accessible. I think one of the things that you look at for the school board is we all bring a different skill set, and what skill set of people that you would like to have be the decision makers for our district. Thank you.
And Mr. Copeland?
Well, thank you again. I think the most important thing for me is making sure that all students matter. So not just my 2 elementary students, but all students in the Mentor community. And not only that, but that would be the basis for the decisions that we make. Our students' value does not come from test scores or a current dollar sign. Our students' have to be the basis for our decisions. And I will work hard to uphold this responsibility to ensure students excel today and are prepared for success tomorrow. Second is accessibility. I believe active listening is a skill that you have to learn, and I want to be accessible, not just in one-way communication, but two-way communication as well, and be present in the school community. In the spirit of what our gentleman said earlier, my cell phone number is 440-520-0359. You can call me there, just not right now. Finally, community engagement, as I said earlier, being involved as a PTA president has allowed me to experience the entire Mentor School community. I also volunteer not just on the elementary level, but middle school and high school. Thank you. Thank you.
And Mrs. Miller?
I don't know what one word would sum up, but I think that my best quality is I like things to be right. Not necessarily my way, but if you're going to do something, you're going to do it the right way. And the most important thing about doing things the right way is to look at every decision we make as a Board of Education. Should be, how is this going to affect not the good students, not the middle students, but all the students. In my career at Mentor High and in the Mentor schools, and in what I'm doing now, the students come first. Thank you.
And Mrs. Roberts?
Qualities, right?
Qualities, yes.
Quick. I'm a mom, I'm a wife and a husband, or I have a husband that's a business leader, I have no husband, who runs a business in our community. I'm a constant volunteer, and I love our schools. I've been a business leader for almost 20 years of my 27 with Progressive. I have strengths of people development, collaboration, negotiation, running an organization, and I'm not afraid to put my boots on the ground. I'm not afraid. I was in the National Guard, in the Army National Guard, and I'm able to see all types of issues before making a decision. I'm used to running a business, but I also have my kids in mind because everything we do touches my kids and every other kid. I believe we need balance in the board. I believe with my background and my experience that I can provide balance to our board and help it continue to be successful in our schools. Thanks.
And Mr. Buckman.
Well, issues. I'm an active listener. That means that I listen to hear and to understand and put my own opinions on the back seat. I have had experiences building consensus. I think I can work with anyone because I see strengths in everyone. Everyone brings something to the table that we can use, especially when we are focused on what's best for students. I had experience in financial management and fiscal emergency. I know what indicators need to be watched carefully to preserve our tax dollars. And finally, because I'm 73, I now can be the voice of our senior citizens. Thank you.
Okay, and the second question, if elected, what would be your top 2 priorities? So again, we are going to begin with Mrs. Jessley.
In this school year and going forward, there are 2 key areas that I'd like to focus on. One has already been mentioned, and that has to do with managing facilities. Because we have more capacity than we have students, it's important that we maximize best student learning while reviewing district facilities for efficiency. It's a key goal for this school year, and that process is already underway via our strategic planning group. Much has changed in classrooms over the past decade, and adapting that physical environment has naturally followed. And using the assessment of current capacity, conditions, and costs for each building, examining programs and resources needed to support high-quality education, we have our community engaged in examining that. And my second focus is career technical education and career preparation opportunities. Enroll, employ, and enlist are 3 avenues from which every Mentor senior can choose. And I support the district's work to broaden secondary career tech options to explore internship and credentialing opportunities. Thank you.
Mrs. Bailey?
First, I think what we need to do is find a leader for the Mentor schools in the superintendent search to make sure it's the right person who represents the Mentor culture and puts our kids first. Second thing, Mrs. Jeshlin stole my thunder a little bit there, but the 3 E's, making sure our graduates are ready to go once they're out of high school, whether it's enrolling, enlisting, or being ready for employment. I had the pleasantries of visiting the house over on 84 that they completely rehabbed, and just to see the pride. These kids gutted it, and it looked like a brand new house when they were through with it. It was really just such a positive thing. And to see, you know, as Ms. Roberts even said, her son, the excitement that these kids have. They're ready to go into the workforce graduating from high school. Thank you.
Well, basically, I think all of us will be in agreement with some of the issues that we are looking at, but the resources, utilization of our resources, you know, like has been referred in the past, that utilization of our buildings and finances, And then the other thing for me is hiring of a permanent superintendent. Right now, we have an interim superintendent, and I think it's important, well, it's the board's job, according to the Ohio Revised Code, is to hire a permanent superintendent. So that would probably be our priorities for me starting next year. Thank you.
Sorry. And Mr. Penley?
My two top priorities that I support are student safety. While we value academic excellence, it's always a top priority in the district to make sure that our students are safe, not just academically, but socially, emotionally, and with their behaviors. So when considering students' whole well-being, safety is obviously a critical issue. And with the opioid epidemic affecting our community, state, and nation, it's critical to continually focus on the safety of our students. Education and prevention in this area is necessary as a necessary component of the student's overall education. That involves working hard to practice the safety procedures we have in place and minimizing hurtful and harmful behaviors. Finally, transparency. We all mentioned financial stability, hiring a superintendent, and facility management. We want to make sure that we communicate to our district and to our stakeholders, parents and community, with clarity and clear communication. That includes all teachers, parents, and students and community members. We need as much transparency and openness as possible. Thank you.
Mrs. Miller?
My two issues for the Mentor Board of Education are, first of all, right-sizing. Mentor has experienced an extreme decline in enrollment, probably over about the last 10 years, maybe a little bit before that. And some changes have been made. We've closed some schools, but some more changes need to be made. We need to take a look at the whole thing. And we need to look at everything from personnel to buildings to services, academic and supplemental. We need to make decisions so that we can run our district more efficiently, not less, more efficiently. The second thing I think we need to look at is hiring a permanent superintendent. The superintendent is that man, as we've all said, he was the vision of the district. He is the person taking care of the details. He's making the suggestions on safety and everything that we look at. He creates the district culture, sets a vision, sets expectations, and we move from there. Thank you.
Mrs. Roberts?
Tough class because everybody says everything. Right? As most of us, expanding those opportunities for our kids, not just the ones that are going into the trades, but even our college-bound kids. We just announced those 2 internships with Lake Health for medical students. Great, we need more of that for our kids. Number 2 would be exploring funding. Even with having to close schools or whatever's decided, we're still going to need to look at funding and how our funding affects from the state. And I really want to dig into that whole 27-point formula and why we don't get more of those casino dollars and things like that, and how can we affect our legislature to make funding go more to our schools. Thank you.
And Mr. Buckley?
I'm not going to be adding anything new, but I would just reiterate, my first priority would be to make sure that every dollar spent must add value to teaching and learning. I want to make sure that we spend money and that it's closest to students in the classroom. Secondly, I think we constantly have to revisit and make sure that our students are feeling safe and secure in their learning environment so they can grow academically and feel comfortable. And finally, our staff needs to feel comfortable and supported. So those would be my priorities. And of course, searching for a new superintendent will be a definite focus for this Board of Education, but I would like to support the process of the search and find who we think is the best fit. Thank you.
I thank you to all 7 candidates. I thank you for running. I thank you for your respect today for each other and for the audience. I thank the audience for sticking with us for the full 90 minutes. And I hope you will enjoy some refreshments on your way out. Thank you very much.